The world of Velthara was rich in colors that never faded. Its skies were painted with soft silver clouds, and the great crystal mountains glowed like lanterns even in the dark of night. The people of Velthara were known across the galaxy for their wisdom, their beauty, and their skill in diplomacy. But among them was one whose story was whispered in fear, the princess named Lysera. Lysera had been born with unmatched beauty. Her skin shimmered like polished stone, and her long violet hair seemed to carry light within it. Her eyes glowed in shades of gold, so bright that many said she could pierce the soul with only a glance. Yet none of these gifts brought her happiness, for she carried a curse that no one could escape. The curse was older than memory. Long ago, her bloodline had broken a vow to an ancient empire that ruled the stars. Legends said the empire had punished them with a binding curse, one that would ensure no future heirs could be born from their line. The spell was cruel and clever. Any male who looked upon a woman of Lysera's line would feel an overwhelming dread. They would turn away, recoil in disgust, or flee in terror. No matter the male, beast, soldier, king, or scholar, all reacted the same. And so though Lysera was the most beautiful among her people, she was also the most rejected. From her earliest days, she knew only isolation. As a child, when she reached out to play with her cousins, the young boys screamed and ran from her. As a youth, when she entered the grand halls, noble sons averted their eyes and begged to be excused. As a grown princess, suitors from across the galaxy came only once, never twice. Her mother tried to comfort her, telling her that strength came from within, but Lysera felt the weight of every whisper. She was called the cursed beauty, the lonely princess, the silent bride. Some even believed she was a living omen, a reminder of her people's guilt. In the great council chambers of Velthara, her presence caused silence, not awe. On her 21st cycle, she stood alone on the balcony of her tower. The twin moons hung above, casting a pale light on her sorrowful face. She wondered if she would ever know what it was like to be looked at with kindness instead of fear. She wondered if she would ever hear laughter that was not nervous or false. Her attendants came and went quietly. They did not meet her eyes, though they served faithfully. Even her own father, the High King, spoke to her in short words, his heart heavy with guilt for passing this burden to her. She bore it with grace, but in secret, tears often filled her nights. Across the stars, however, change was stirring. Humanity, a young species compared to most, had begun stepping into the wider galaxy. At first, they were dismissed as reckless upstarts, too bold for their own good. But their curiosity, their persistence, and their strange resilience made them impossible to ignore. And soon, they were invited to a grand summit where many powers would gather, including the Veltharans. Lysera knew she would be forced to attend. Though she dreaded it, she had no choice. To leave her absent would be seen as weakness, and her people could not afford more shame. She would walk into the great hall, wearing her crown and her flowing silks, and she would endure the looks of fear once again. That night before the journey, she sat before her mirror. Her reflection was flawless, yet her heart whispered doubts. "What use is beauty," she murmured, "when it brings only sorrow?" She touched the golden pendant on her chest, a family heirloom that symbolized her house. What use is a princess who cannot even smile freely? Her voice broke, and the room remained silent. She wiped her tears, knowing no one would ever hold her hand in comfort. The curse made sure of that. Still, Lysera was no weak spirit. She stood tall, wiped, her face clean, and wrapped herself in the royal mantle. She had carried this curse for 21 years. She would carry it longer if she must. But in the secret place of her heart, she still wished just once for someone to see her, not the curse. The next day, the royal ships left Velthara, their crystal wings shining as they cut through the stars. Lysera sat in her private chamber, her golden eyes staring out at the endless void. She wondered what new humiliation awaited her at the summit. She wondered what new whispers would follow her name. But what she did not know was that destiny was already moving. Across the stars, a human captain prepared for the same summit. His name was Elias Ward. And unlike all others, he would not run from her. He would not look at her and see fear. He would look at her and see a person, something no one had ever done before. And that single meeting would change not just her life, but the fate of entire worlds. The Galactic Summit was unlike any other event. It was held once every 10 cycles, where the great powers of the galaxy gathered to speak, argue, and display their strength. The chosen world was neutral ground, Zareth Prime, a planet of towering spires and floating halls built from black, stone, and glowing crystal. Ships from every empire arrived, filling the skies like flocks of metal birds. The Veltheran fleet was among them, its crystal wings shimmering as they descended. Inside the royal ship, Princess Lysera prepared herself. She wore her finest gown of woven light, a dress that caught every color of the hall. The crown rested gently on her head, and her pendant glowed against her chest. Outwardly, she looked the perfect princess, untouchable and regal. But within, she felt the old fear rise again. She knew what would happen. It always happened. The moment she entered, eyes would fall upon her, and then they would turn away in disgust or terror. Males of every race would flee from her presence, the curse wrapping around them like invisible chains. She would be left standing alone as she always was. Her father, the High King, stood beside her. His voice was kind but heavy. "Daughter, I know the weight you carry. Walk with dignity as you always have. The world may look upon you with fear, but remember, you are Velthara's pride." Lysera bowed her head. "Yes, father." The ship landed with a low hum. Servants guided the royals into the grand hall. The summit chamber was massive, with a dome ceiling that glittered like the night sky. Delegates from hundreds of species filled the room, each group in their colors and banners. Some were tall and thin as reeds, others short and covered in scales, some with wings, others with smooth metallic shells. At first, all was calm. Then the herald announced her name, Princess Lysera of House Velthara. The hall fell silent. As she stepped forward, the curse took hold. One by one, male delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some turned their faces away, others lowered their heads. A few muttered excuses and retreated quickly to the edges of the hall. Even the bravest looked upon her only for a second before trembling and refusing to meet her gaze. Lysera walked slowly, each step heavy with the weight of rejection. She had expected this. She had prepared her heart for it. But the sting of silence was sharp as always. Then something unexpected happened. Another herald raised his voice. Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Republic. A human walked into the chamber. He wore a navy blue uniform with silver trim, his boots polished and his posture straight. His eyes were calm, steady, and full of curiosity as he looked around the room. The aliens watched him closely. Some whispered about the humans, the newcomers to galactic politics. Lysera turned her head slightly just to see how he would react. She braced herself for the moment his eyes would meet hers. She expected the usual, a flinch, a look of dread, a hurried escape. But Elias did none of these things. His gaze settled on her, and for the first time in her life, a male looked at her without fear. His eyes did not widen in terror. His steps did not falter. Instead, he smiled politely and gave a respectful bow. "Your Highness," he said in a steady voice, "it is an honor to meet you." The hall froze. Whispers spread like fire through the chamber. Alien leaders leaned toward one another, muttering in disbelief. The cursed beauty had spoken to countless males, but none had ever stood their ground. None had ever greeted her so calmly. Lysera herself was stunned. Her heart raced. For a moment she thought it must be a trick. Perhaps he had not truly seen her. But his eyes were on hers, steady and clear, as though he saw nothing unusual. "You do not fear me?" she whispered, her voice trembling though she tried to hide it. Elias tilted his head slightly, confused. "Should I?" The words were simple, but they shook her to her core. All her life, fear had been the only answer she received. Now for the first time someone treated her as if she were simply a person. The other delegates were not calm. Some accused the humans of using secret technology. Others muttered about dangerous sorcery. A few suggested the human was pretending, and that soon he would collapse like the rest. But Elias stood firm, his expression thoughtful but never afraid. The High King of Velthera, who had long carried sorrow in his eyes, could not hide his shock. He leaned toward one of his advisors and whispered, "Do you see it? The curse does not touch him." The advisor nodded, speechless. Lysera lowered her gaze for a moment, trying to steady herself. She was not used to this. She was not used to being spoken to like she mattered. Carefully, she asked, "Would you walk with me, Captain?" Elias nodded without hesitation. "Of course." Together they walked across the chamber. Behind them, the whispers grew louder. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy stared. Their expressions a mix of confusion, fear, and awe. Lysera's heart pounded with every step. She wanted to believe this was real. She wanted to believe that for once, the curse had no hold. But deep, the summit hall was alive with whispers. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy watched in disbelief. None had ever seen the cursed princess treated normally by a male. Yet amidst the murmurs and sideways glances, Princess Lysera and Captain Elias Ward walked calmly, talking as if the entire hall were not holding its breath. Lysera felt something she had never felt before, a lightness in her chest. The fear, the loneliness, the endless rejection that had shadowed her life, all seemed to fade when Elias spoke to her. His words were simple but kind. He asked about her world, about her people, about the great towers and crystal seas of Velthara. He listened to her answers with genuine interest, nodding and smiling as if her words mattered deeply. "It is beautiful, this planet you come from," Elias said, eyes shining with curiosity. "I've never seen anything like it in all my travels." Lysera's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Most outsiders only speak of fear," she admitted softly. "They see me as a curse, not as a person." Elias shook his head. "I do not see a curse. I see a princess who has endured more than anyone should have to. That is strength." The warmth in his words surprised her. For years she had carried the weight of her isolation silently. Her attendants, her teachers, even her own father had tried to shield her from the pain, but none could remove the fear that always followed her. Yet here was someone, a human, who looked at her without dread, without hesitation. As the summit continued, Lysera and Elias found themselves walking together between sessions. They spoke of the galaxy's different species, of cultures, and of histories that often conflicted with one another. Each question Elias asked made her feel seen, respected, and understood. With every answer she gave, she noticed his patience and curiosity never wavered. Other delegates noticed too. Some of the younger Veltherans, who had grown up hearing only tales of the cursed princess, whispered among themselves. "He is different," one muttered. "No fear, no rejection. How is this possible?" Rumors spread quickly. Some accused humans of secret magic, thinking they had somehow found a way to bypass the curse. Others debated if it was a natural immunity, unique to their species. The Veltherans themselves watched with cautious hope. Even Lysera's father allowed a small, proud smile to touch his lips when he saw his daughter walking and speaking freely. For her part, Lysera felt a growing trust in Elias. She no longer feared his presence. She laughed quietly at one of his jokes, a soft, genuine sound that had not escaped her lips in years. The sound drew a few curious glances, but she ignored them. For the first time, she was laughing for herself, not as an act to please others or hide her loneliness. "You have a wonderful laugh," Elias said gently. "You should do it more often." I never thought anyone would want to hear it," she admitted, her voice low. "For most, my voice is enough to drive them away." Elias shook his head, his expression earnest. "I want to hear it. I want to hear you. You do not need to fear me. You do not need to hide." Lysera felt a warmth she had not known she was capable of feeling. Her entire life had been shaped by the curse, by the fear that every male would reject her. And now, standing beside a human who treated her as she deserved, she realized that perhaps the world could be different. Perhaps she could be different. Later, in a quieter part of the hall, away from the eyes of hundreds of delegates, they sat together near a window overlooking the floating gardens of Zareth Prime. The plants glowed softly under the twin moons, casting a gentle light on their faces. Lysera felt comfortable enough to speak of things she had never shared with anyone. My people. They suffer because of me, she confessed. The curse has lasted generations. Each female born into my family has faced the same loneliness, the same fear, and yet nothing can be done. The magic is too old, too strong. Elias listened closely, his gaze steady. Magic is not always about power, he said slowly. Sometimes it is about belief. Perhaps the reason the curse has held is that everyone believes it must. But maybe, just maybe, it can be broken. Lysera's heart quickened. Could it be true? Could a human, someone who had no place in their old stories, actually change what magic had long decreed? You believe I could be free? She asked cautiously. Elias smiled. I do. I see no reason why you should suffer, and I will help you, if you let me. For the first time in her life, Lysera felt hope. It was fragile, like a delicate crystal, but it was there. The possibility that she could walk among males without fear, that she could laugh, speak, and live freely, seemed within reach. As the summit day drew to a close, Lysera and Elias returned to the delegation chambers. Other delegates whispered, still uncertain of the human's immunity to the curse, but Lysera no longer cared. She had found someone who treated her as herself, not as the legend that had trapped her. During the evening feast, she sat beside Elias, their conversation quiet but lively. While others avoided her gaze, he spoke to her directly, engaging with curiosity and respect. When she laughed, he smiled with her. When she worried, he offered calm reassurance. She realized that a simple human kindness could do what centuries of isolation and rejection could not. By the time the night ended, Lysera felt a sense of peace she had never known. The curse still existed, she knew, but it did not matter, not as long as Elias was near. For the first time, she imagined a life where she could be free, where her heart would not ache with loneliness, and somewhere deep within, a small, bright hope took root. The hope that perhaps together they could discover the secret to breaking the curse. Lysera closed her eyes that night, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Across the stars, Elias too thought of her, unaware that he had already begun to change her life forever. The days after the summit had been intense. Delegates returned to their ships. Discussions continued late into the night, and the galaxy buzzed with whispers about the human who had not feared the cursed princess. For Lysera, each moment with Captain Elias Ward felt like a window opening to a world she had never known, a world without rejection and dread. One quiet afternoon, she found herself walking with Elias through the crystal corridors of her ship. The sun of Zareth Prime shone through the translucent walls, casting 1,000 colors across the floor. Lysera moved slowly, her mind heavy with questions. Captain, she began, her voice hesitant. I need to know. Why are humans different? Why are you not affected by the curse? Elias stopped and looked at her carefully. I don't know for certain, he admitted, but I want to understand. Tell me everything you know about this curse. Its origin, its purpose. Everything. Lysera nodded. They entered her private study, a quiet room filled with books, scrolls, and crystal artifacts. She began to recount the history she had learned from her family and scholars. The curse was ancient, placed upon her bloodline by an empire long gone. That empire had ruled countless star systems, and it had punished her ancestors for betrayal. The spell was meant to prevent any male from forming bonds with women of her line, ensuring the family would slowly fade from the galaxy. The magic is very old, she explained, her fingers tracing the edges of a worn crystal. It has lasted centuries. Scholars say it cannot be undone, and yet, you do not feel it. You are the first. Elias listened intently, his brow furrowed. Then perhaps it was not meant for humans. Maybe the curse recognizes only known species. From that time, humans did not exist back then, so the magic cannot perceive us. Lysera blinked, considering his words. If that is true, then the curse has a weakness, a small window where it cannot act. But how? How do we break it completely? Elias shook his head slowly. I do not know yet. But I do know this. It cannot survive if people stop believing in its power. If someone strong, faces it without fear. You have endured it for years. You have survived its isolation and rejection. That shows courage. And I will stand by you. Lysera felt a warmth rise in her chest. She had spent so many years alone, enduring scorn and fear. No one had ever offered support like this. For the first time, she thought that perhaps the curse was not the only power in the galaxy. Perhaps human will and determination could change even the oldest magic. Later, they spoke with a Veltheron scholar, a wise elder named Mirith, who had studied the bloodlines and the curse for decades. Mirith examined the ancient texts and artifacts, his hands trembling slightly as he held a crystal tablet etched with strange runes. This curse, Mirith said slowly, was designed to repel all known males of the galaxy. It was a weapon of isolation, pure and cruel. Only an outsider, unknown to the original spell, could pass through it. That human, he is unique. He is immune. Lysera's eyes widened. So it is not me failing. It is the spell itself. Mirith nodded gravely. Yes, Princess, you are not the problem. You are the solution waiting to be found. Elias spoke quietly. Then there must be a way to release you completely. A way to free your people from this centuries of fear. Mirith stroked his beard. The spell has a core hidden deep in your ancestral crystals. It is tied to belief, to the fear of males. If that fear is broken, if someone faces it without hesitation, the curse will unravel. But it will require courage, and it will require unity. You cannot do it alone. Lysera's mind raced. Could a human help? Could someone from your species truly break it? Elias smiled softly. I will try, but not just me. If your people join in, the galaxy is not always kind to hope. Lysera had discovered a spark of possibility, a chance to break the curse that had shadowed her life. But not everyone welcomed change. In the quiet corners of the summit, rivals plotted. Some feared the human who could stand before the cursed princess without hesitation. Others saw the princess's freedom as a threat to their influence. One night, as Velthera's ship drifted among the stars, Lysera was seized. Shadowy figures moved quickly through the corridors, bypassing guards and disabling sensors. By the time her attendants noticed, she was gone. She awoke in a chamber that was dimly lit and cold. The walls were carved from black stone, and strange runes glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows. Lysera's heart raced. She had been captured. The ones who wanted the curse to remain had acted. The fear that had always haunted her returned, sharper and heavier than before. But beneath it, a small flame of determination burned. She would not let them control her. Meanwhile, Elias discovered her absence. He had been speaking with other delegates when a guard rushed to him, breathless. Princess Lysera has been taken. Elias's eyes narrowed. He did not hesitate. Show me where, he said. Within moments, he was preparing a rescue, gathering a small team of humans and Veltheran allies who trusted him. They boarded a swift shuttle, its engines humming like a predatory bird. Elias's mind was focused, every step calculated. Failure was not an option. Back in the dark chamber, Lysera tried to steady her fear. The captors entered, tall and armored, their faces hidden beneath masks. You will remain here, one said. The curse must not be broken. Your freedom is dangerous. Lysera stood tall even though her heart pounded. You cannot hold me forever. The curse is not my fault. and it will not define me. Someone will come." The captors laughed softly, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. They had not expected defiance from the cursed princess herself. Outside, Elias's team tracked the chamber through sensors and hidden cameras. He studied every path, every obstacle. The corridors were traps, designed to delay any would-be rescuers. But humans are persistent, and Elias had never been one to give up. Finally, they arrived at the entrance. Elias signaled his team to advance quietly. Every step brought him closer to Lysera. He remembered her golden eyes, her steady voice, the trust she had placed in him. That memory strengthened his resolve. Inside, Lysera felt a sudden shift. The air seemed charged with energy, as if the very walls were aware of her courage. She reached for the pendant on her chest, the family heirloom that had protected her for years. It pulsed faintly, almost as if it recognized that hope had returned. Then the doors burst open. Elias led the charge, moving swiftly and decisively. His team followed, neutralizing the guards with precise non-lethal force. Lysera's eyes widened. She could not believe it. He had come just as he promised. "Princess," Elias called, "stay close to me." Lysera moved toward him, her hands trembling but steady. For the first time in her life, she did not feel the crushing weight of fear. Instead, she felt strength drawn from trust and courage. As they reached the final chamber, the captors confronted them in a last attempt to stop the rescue. The air was tense, charged with magic and fear. The runes on the walls glowed brighter, reacting to the presence of the human. But Elias did not flinch. He raised his hand toward Lysera, and for a moment, the room was filled with a strange, luminous energy. The curse recoiled. It had never faced such defiance. The magic that had held generations in fear began to unravel, as if it could not withstand the courage of someone who had never known the spell, standing beside someone who dared to defy it. Lysera felt the energy pass through her, not as pain, but as liberation. The years of rejection, the loneliness, the whispers of dread, all of it began to fade. She looked at Elias, and for the first time she smiled fully, without hesitation. The captors stepped back, unsure of what they witnessed. The spell they had relied upon, the power they had feared, was breaking. Even they could feel it, a force beyond their understanding. "Move," Elias commanded. "Now." Together, they left the chamber. The corridors no longer seemed hostile. The energy that had bound Lysera loosened, allowing her to walk freely, unafraid. By the time they reached the shuttle, the dark power that had haunted her family for centuries had weakened, almost broken entirely. In the quiet of space, as the ship accelerated toward Velthara, Lysera leaned slightly toward Elias. You really did it," she said softly. Elias shook his head. "We did it. You were never alone, and we are not done yet. The curse may be weakened, but we must ensure it is gone completely." Lysera nodded. Her heart swelled with hope. For the first time she felt that freedom was not a dream. It was real, within reach, and together they could claim it fully. The stars outside seemed brighter, the sky clearer. A new chapter of her life had begun, one in which the cursed princess would no longer be defined by fear. She was free, at least for now, and the galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. A princess standing tall, with courage and trust, ready to reclaim her destiny. And at her side, a human stood firm, showing the galaxy that bravery and persistence could challenge even the oldest, most powerful magic. The stars outside Velthara's palace sparkled as if celebrating. Princess Lysera walked through the halls, her steps light and free, unlike any she had taken before. The curse that had shadowed her life for centuries was finally broken. No longer did males recoil from her presence. No longer did fear cloud the eyes of those around her. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as a legend or a burden, but as herself. Captain Elias Ward stood by her side, his human presence calm and reassuring. He had not only defied the ancient magic but had shown the galaxy what courage and determination could achieve. Lysera smiled at him, a warm, genuine smile, and felt a sense of peace she had never known. Her father, the High King of Velthara, approached with a look of pride and relief. "Lysera," he said softly, "you have endured what no one else could. Today you have not only freed yourself but given hope to our people." Lysera bowed her head respectfully. "Father, it is not just me. Captain Elias helped. Humans, your presence among us has shown us a new way. We can change our destiny." The High King nodded. "Indeed. The galaxy will remember this. Perhaps they will even respect humanity in ways they never did before." Word spread quickly, across Velthara and beyond. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy who had once whispered fear about the cursed princess now watched in awe. Humans, they realized, were not only immune to the oldest magics, but also capable of breaking them entirely. Whispers of fear turned into admiration, and admiration into cautious respect. Lysera's people celebrated her return. Her closest friends, who had once avoided her to escape the curse, now walked beside her freely. Children approached without hesitation, their laughter no longer halted by the invisible chains of magic. For generations, the princess had been alone, but now the halls of Velthara rang with joy. Yet amidst celebration, Lysera never forgot the trials she had faced. She knew the curse had been powerful, cunning, and cruel. It had marked her life, with isolation, pain, and misunderstanding. But she also knew that courage, kindness, and persistence could overcome even the oldest of fears. And she had seen it firsthand, standing beside someone who refused to be swayed by superstition or dread. As days passed, Lysera and Elias worked together to ensure the curse would never return. Ancient texts were carefully studied, spells were carefully reversed, and Velthara's magical scholars learned new methods to protect the princess and her bloodline from future enchantments. The process was delicate and required patience, but the results were certain. Through it all, Lysera's admiration for Elias grew. He was patient, intelligent, and fearless. Yet it was not only his bravery she valued, it was his ability to see her for who she truly was. A princess, yes, but also a woman capable of leadership, courage, and hope. One morning, as the twin suns of Velthara rose over the Crystal Mountains, Lysera stood with Elias at the balcony of the palace. Below, the city shimmered in celebration. Her people waved from the streets, their faces bright with joy and relief. The curse that had haunted generations was gone, and the future looked promising. Elias smiled at her. "You did it," he said simply. "Not me. You faced the fear and endured it. I only helped." Lysera reached for his hand. "And you gave me hope. Without you, I would not have known that freedom was possible." For a moment, they stood together in silence, feeling the significance of the moment. Across the galaxy, beings of every kind now looked at humans differently. Where once there was fear or doubt, there was respect. Humanity had proven itself capable of facing the impossible, breaking ancient magic and helping others claim their freedom. The celebration that followed was grand. Velthara's palace glowed with light, music, and laughter. Delegates from across the galaxy attended, and all watched as the once cursed princess spoke with confidence and joy. She spoke of courage, of hope, and of the human who had stood beside her. "And today," Lysera said, her voice carrying across the grand hall, "we have seen that fear can be overcome. Even the oldest curses can be broken when one stands with courage and when hope is allowed to shine." Applause filled the hall. Aliens who had once avoided her now clapped openly, their eye